for the Black Cat fans, you got a beautiful Mark Bagley cover, and you got some Spidey or I guess Peter and Felicia action here. Is this what we actually need in Spider-Man right now, Dan? The floor is yours.
Well, I actually want to bounce it back to you, and because I am curious. I'm not even asking for your opinion.
Okay.
What is your read on what is going on here? Because to me, besides something that we're going to talk about in a little bit about Sidorak and Calix, my big struggle with this scene is I feel like I kind of have a grasp on what's going on here, but it's the one time that we're kind of really not given a ton of insight into what Peter is thinking in the moment of Felicia kissing him. And I'm curious what you think is going on here, because this is where I felt most detached from my understanding of where Peter is at emotionally in this moment.
I mean, look, this could be a gigantic overread on my part. So, take this with as many grains
Go
of
for it,
Spidey
I might
salt.
give you a giant underread on my part.
Sure, but I have always taken Felicia's character to probably be the most nihilistic or hedonistic of Spider-Man's supporting cast. I mean, this kind of goes back to even her earliest appearances in canon, which is her basically being why, to Peter, why do you care this much? You know what I mean? Just do fun stuff, rob, make out, whatever. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a core part of her character. And granted, the character has grown significantly since then, but I think at its core, there's still that element there. And I viewed this scene as Peter knowing that in Felicia, there is someone that I think is in a way aligns with his current mindset, even if it doesn't necessarily appear that way in the words coming out of her but I think he's just kind of here's the person that's basically been telling me since day one that my whole quest is naive and silly and immature. And, so I can come to her feeling this way right now and not be actually judged by it. Even if she's trying to cheer him up, I don't have to be judged. And I think he's just trying to go there to see if in being in her company, he can feel something that can kind of snap him out of this. That's how I read it. But, your mileage may vary.
No, I actually think that's an excellent read on the scene. I wish the book did a little more work to re-emphasizing that. I think it is on the page, but it could have used a little more massaging in terms of spelling out Felicia's worldview, because and maybe this is just leftover damage from the Wells run, which cast Felicia as someone that was looking for a serious relationship with Peter and called it off when she was you're doing this half-heartedly.
Right. And
I remember at the end of issue 900 when she kissed Peter, I was oh no, this is nothing. It's not the start of a relationship. It's just a kiss.
Right.
And then I was dead wrong. It was the start of a relationship. And, one that ended up being, half-hearted on Peter's behalf, whether that was a retcon or not. And so maybe my sort of guard is up about hey, this could still go either way, even if your reading of it is ultimately correct.
Yeah.
And I really don't want that, for Peter or for this book. And I think that if that's true, then it makes me kind of disappointed in the way that Ireland used a female character kind of purely for her sexuality in regards to Peter. Even if it's in character for Felicia, I thought the work that she did with Felicia in issue 63 really pushed the character forward in some regards as more than just a sex object that might bring Peter some joy. But I think your read of it is accurate. It just makes me really dubious. And it's such a repeat of the Wells stuff that it makes me kind of worried.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess as weird as it is, though, I don't see it as a sexualization of her. Like, I just kind of feel it's more just like he's still, and you know, the conversation between Syra and Strange kind of thing, like he's so disengaged right now. He's just trying to feel connection where he can find it, and Felicia's kind of like, I think, the path of least resistance. So I don't think it's necessarily about sexualizing her as much as just kind of acknowledging the fact that she just doesn't judge him the same way every other character in his orbit does. That's kind of where I don't mind it as much. I don't.
Sure. I guess I could have just done without the kiss.
Sure, I get that, but you know, I guess it's just like where. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough, but like he's going around this entire issue. I mean, you know, the person that he's actually in a romantic relationship with is telling him to get help. You know,
Yeah.
and like that's not to slam Shay. She was right, but it's like, you know, Felicia's the only person who is just like, yeah, I get it, you know, like ultimately you shouldn't be this way, but I kind of get it, you know? So I think he just felt like he needed some kind of connection within that. But yeah, I mean,
So do you feel like this is a step forward or step backwards for him? Because like,
I think it depends on what the next issue brings.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm curious. Cause and again, I asked you like what your read of it was, because like, I don't know how I'm meant to feel either. Is like,
Well, I mean,
should I feel like, oh no, Peter's indulging in this more and that's bad for
Right.
him? Or should I feel like this kiss will heal him in some way?
Well, it goes back to the very first thing that I talked about in this episode, Dan, which was that, like, to me, I almost felt like we are now like a half of comic in this status quo too long now, because like, I think if we had, you know, you kind of, I think we needed to see which side of the world Peter was coming out of after that moment at the end of this issue to truly thrust the story into its next phase, and we didn't. And that's problematic to me, because I feel like, you know, like you said, like, is he indulging further? Like, you know, you were talking about Schrodinger earlier. I mean, it could be either when we open the next issue, you know what I mean? Which is, I think, a little bit of a frustrating read.
Yeah, and I feel like we always get to this issue when we talk about our long-form Nick Lowe edited Spider-Man stories, where we get to an issue and we get to a point where like the next issue will determine, like issue 25 of the Wells run. We were like, this issue seemed fine, but like what happens in the next issue will determine whether or not the story has truly gone off the rails.
Are they going to land the plane or not? You know what I mean? And unfortunately, the last few times it's happened, the plane has not landed.
Right. And so like, I always feel like I end up looking like an idiot because I end up really liking what you might judge as the climax or like the big inciting incident.
Right.
And I'll like say something really positive about it, only for the plane to completely crash by the end of the story. And so I think that kind of moves us to the last two parts.